Hi friends. Today for our math lesson I want to pick up where we kind of stopped when we went on our spring break, and that was when we were talking about the difference between flat shapes and solid shapes. So I brought back some of my shapes to show you. This is my coaster. It's a square. And we talked about how flat shapes can have vertices, which are the corner points, right? And they can have sides. So on a square, you'll have 1, 2, 3, 4 vertices, and 1, 2, 3, 4 sides. And I also wanted to show you my solid. Now this is a cube. This is a flat shape, and then this is a three-dimensional solid shape. So when you look at this cube, it has actually square faces on all the sides. Okay, and I'm going to talk with you about that because three-dimensional shapes also will have vertices that I wanted to talk to you about. But instead of sides, we'll call the flat surfaces their faces. Okay, and I'll show you those. I wanted to remind you of this shape here. This is my circular coaster. It's a round circle. It has 0 flat sides. It only has curved sides, so it has 0 sides and 0 vertices because on the circle there are no points or where two sides meet because there are no sides. So circles have no sides and no vertices. This is my solid, so this is my flat shaped circle. This is my solid cylinder shape, and if you look at the top of the can, this is my can of oranges. If you look at the top, you will see a circular shape here on the top, and then if you flip it over, you'll see a circular shape here on the bottom, and these again are called faces. So I want to talk to you a little bit about how to describe solid shapes today, now that we've kind of reviewed the difference between flat and solid and flat and solid. Okay, so I wanted to remind you of the different solid shapes that we learned about, and they're here on your math lesson for today. So we talked about cubes, we talked about cones, we talked about cylinders, and we talked about round spheres like a ball. Okay, so for today's lesson, you're going to be going into your math book and you're going to be looking for something called a face on an object on a solid shape, and also how many points or vertices you'll see. So for my cube today, I wanted to take a moment and trace all the sides so you can see how many sides there are. So I'm going to start with the 0 pointing up just to make sure that I get all the sides, and I'm just tracing around the edges of the cube here, and then when I'm done you will see what shape face does it have. A square, right? So that's with the 0 pointing up. Now let me flip to the 1 pointing up, and we'll go around my cube again. And again, you see another square face. Okay, now let me go to the 2 pointing up and trace it again. And when you trace it, you get to see the faces. How many faces do you think there will be on a cube? So far, I've traced 1, 2, 3 faces, but I'm not done yet because I've only done the 0, the 1, and the 2. What comes after 2? 3. So let me go with the 3 pointing up and trace that one and see what happens. Okay, and I get another square. See that? Now let me go with the 4 facing up. So each time I turn my cube, I get the same shape face, which is a square. And now I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 faces so far in my cube. But I'm not done because I did 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4 so far. But my cube has a number 5 on it. So let me trace with the 5 facing up. Here's my 5 facing up. And when I trace this one, this will be my number 5. That's all the faces on my cube. So I have, this is a 0, but this is how many faces. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 faces. So when I look at my cube, I have a top, that's one face. I have a bottom, that's number 2. And then I have 3, 4, 5, 6. So every time you have a flat surface on a solid shape, that's what we're going to call a face of a shape. So my cube has 6 faces. Now let's see how many vertices that this cube has. Remember, a vertex is every time you see a point or a corner. So let's look at the top of my cube. I have 1, 2, 3, 4 vertices on the top. And then when I flip it over, I have 1, 2, 3, 4 vertices on the bottom. So how much is 4 and 4 more? How many is that? Let's find out. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So my solid cube has 6 sides, so it has 6, 2 on the top, or 1 on the top, 1 on the bottom, and then 4 around. So that's 6 faces, and 1, 2, 3, 4 vertices on the top, and 1, 2, 3, 4 vertices on the bottom, and 4 plus 4 equals 8. So it's 6 faces and 8 vertices. Okay. Now my cube has square faces. So when you get here into your math book, it will look something like this, where it's going to ask you to write the name of the shape that you see so you can trace it, and then you're going to write cube. And then for faces, we counted 6 because we have a 1 on the top, number 2 on the bottom, 3, 4, 5, 6 sides, or 6 faces altogether. So we'll put a 6 here. And then for the vertices, there's 4 points on the top, and you can in your book circle them like we did before. 4 on the top and 4 on the bottom. So 4 plus 4 equals 8. So 8 vertices. Okay. Then when you get to the cylinder, let's take a look at the cylinder. Okay, do you see any points or corners or vertices where the 2 sides come to a point? When you look at this, I don't see any points at all. I do see a couple of faces, which I want to trace for you. So my cube had square faces. What do you think the face is going to be on my cylinder? So if I flip my paper over and I trace my cylinder on the bottom, and then I'll take my cylinder and flip it over and do the top, I'm going to show you what shape I get. Do you see that? So the cylinder has 2 faces, the top and the bottom, and what shapes are they? They're both circles. Do you see any corners or points or vertices? 0. Okay, so on a cylinder there are 2 faces that are circles, but 0 vertices or 0 points. So it will look like this in your math book, where you'll write up here for the name of the shape you see. It'll be a cylinder and you can trace it. The faces, there were 2. There's a top circle and a bottom circle. That's 2. And how many vertices? 0, because there are no sharp points. Okay. Now I want to show you one thing on my cone here that we talked about. The cone was the shape that we talked about before break. So at the bottom of the cone, you see the same shape that you saw on the bottom of the cylinder, and that is a circular bottom. So it has 1 circular face on the bottom. And then how many points do you see? So these are straight lines that are coming up and then changing directions, and it ends at a point right here. So you'll see the word point here instead of vertice, and that just means that there's 1 point here on the top. So it would be 1 face and 1 vertice on this cylinder. Okay, so we talked about the cone, we talked about the cylinder, we talked about the cube, but let's take a look at the sphere. Okay, so a sphere is a ball shape, and do you see any flat surfaces on the ball? If it's completely around, is there anything you can trace on the ball to show a different shape or a flat shape? There are 0 faces on a sphere. And then on the sphere, do you see any corners or points or vertices? There are 0. There are no places where it comes to a point where 2 sides meet like that. There are 0. So on a sphere, it's going to be, you're writing sphere here, and you're writing 0 faces and 0 vertices. Okay, guys, so I hope you have fun with the math lesson today. If you're not sure about what shape face or how many faces you can get on a solid shape, go around your house like we did on our scavenger hunt, find some of these different items, and then trace them just like I did to see what kind of faces you can come up with and to count them as well. And that will help you too. And remember that these solids, they do have, the faces are the flat surfaces that you can trace and count, and the vertices are the corners or points that you get, okay? So I hope you have a great time with the math lesson today, and I'll check in with you later. I can't wait to see the work that you turn in today.